Just a heads up. Don't want to leave you guys stranded and alone, but we are going on a summer hiatus for a Tolada baby to be born.
Mm-hmm.
So our last episode of season 1 will be June 14th. And Lord willing, we will be back for season 2 in September. But we have more episodes till then. So listen in until June 14th.
Hi, welcome to Kinship. We're 4 church sisters who share our discussions so that you're encouraged to deepen relationships in your local church.
Hi, I'm Kelly, here with Pam, Bethany, and Francis in Bethany's house. All nice and cozy. Little context, we ate canes earlier. It's a beautiful evening. So, icebreaker question. Have you ever met or seen anyone famous? Go, Francis.
Yes, I saw and met and took a picture with Shaquille O'Neal.
No.
Yeah, that was when they won their championship.
How tall is he?
He was really tall.
Like as tall as Bethany's dad or taller?
No, he would.
no.
Okay,
That's
my
like our
dad's 6'6".
standard for tall.
I think he's like at least
7,
7 foot something.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy because it was at a nightclub. My friend had invited me because his neighbor works for Vodka, the company, and so they were the ones that sponsored this event for the Lakers. And so he's like, "You want to go?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So we went and we got to see Rick Fox. So I got to take a picture with him.
That is so cool.
But I've also seen other famous people. Well, my husband knows that that's not true, but I think that it's the person, and then he just makes fun of me
He
because
lets you though, like
He eggs you on.
Yeah.
Like,
yes,
it is
yeah,
him.
it is them,
Yeah.
huh? It looks exactly like them. Because there was this one situation where I thought it was Danny Glover, the actor from Lethal Weapon. I'm sure he makes movies like now, but I just don't know any of them now. It's like Lethal Weapon's like the movie. And we were at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. And so I was sitting down and then I was like, hun, Danny Glover's over there. And he looks and he like laughs, but he doesn't let me see that he's laughing. And he turns around with a straight face and he's like, that's him. That's him. And I'm like, yes. Because he always makes fun of me and says like, dude, doesn't even look like him. But this time he was messing with me. And then I started dancing and being like, don't let me get in my zone. Don't let me get in my zone. He's like, yeah, that's him. That's him. He's like, ask the waitress. And then the waitress came and I'm like, excuse me, is that Danny Glover over there? And she's like, who? And I'm like, oh, Danny Glover. And she's like, I'll go check. And then she goes and she comes back. I was like, oh, so was it him? And she's like, oh, no, that was not Danny Glover. She laughed and then PJ just started dying laughing. He's like, that guy looks nothing like Danny Glover.
but he let you be humiliated.
Yes,
This lady.
he loved it. He was having such a good time. So anyways.
Okay, so I've met Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen.
What?
With my twin when they were filming their little soccer movie.
Yeah.
I love that.
But they did not recognize that I was a twin. I was there with my sister. They're like, oh, you guys friends?
Oh.
You should know when you see a twin. No, or I was like 5 though, so I was like, I didn't say anything. And then, do you guys know who Martin Sheen is?
Yes.
Yes, I met him
Whoa.
at like a gymnastics studio,
Ooh.
and I had no idea who he was.
Okay.
And there was another lady there, and she's like, "Come on, let's go like meet him," because she like had talked to him a few times.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, join the dance class with me," and I was like, "No."
Oh,
And that
that's a
was
little
it.
creepy though.
It was like, it sounds creepy. Like I'll
Okay.
say like, "Oh, Martin Sheen asked me to dance."
Yeah.
But he was just like, it was a group of
Oh,
people.
good,
He's like,
good,
"Come
good.
on, join the class." You
Okay.
know, it wasn't like to me like.
yes.
But I always say that, like, "Oh yeah, he asked me to dance."
Yeah.
He really didn't.
Oh, okay.
Man, mine's all whack. We were at Disneyland. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Even Stevens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beans.
Yes.
We saw him. We like took pictures with him.
Well, I swear I saw Justin Bieber
What?
in Vegas. We were there. We were at like a brunch place outside a casino. So we
Mm-hmm.
were like at a casino, but at the restaurant outside of it, having brunch after church. And we originally were seated inside, and there was a bar, and like facing the other direction. So I only saw his profile
Yeah.
and his side, but he was also like a tattooed, skinny, white, punk looking. You know, like he looked like Justin Bieber. And he was surrounded by big, strong men in black who were
Oh.
facing every direction besides his. So the guy had security.
Yeah.
And it looked like Justin Bieber, and I could kind of see him in like the reflection of the mirror behind the bar, and I'm like, dude, that's Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
But then we got moved outside, which I
Aw.
also thought was suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure it was Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
No one else in the group will say it was Justin Bieber because I'm the only one that saw it. But I was also playing it really cool.
Yeah.
But that's true. And then at a Rubio's, because, you know, good things happen.
All right. All right.
I was there with my friend Heather. And, okay, do you guys watch Sister Sister?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the little brother.
Taj
Oh,
Mari?
wow.
Yes.
Whoa.
He looked just like
Oh no.
was there.
You're one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like
You do.
me.
It was like
Yeah,
that. Neither me or my friend were brave enough to go ask him.
Yeah.
But we probably made the guy feel so uncomfortable
Aw.
because we were like
Staring at him.
trying to get up the nerve
yeah.
to go ask.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do it. So before we get started, I have an announcement. The Barrick family is getting a baby. That's me. We're having a baby. That's me. Just
me.
Kelly Barrick. She didn't hear the word Barrick. That's my last name. We're having a baby. So we're very excited about that.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
We find out in June if it's a boy or girl, and then we get to see them on November 3rd.
Yes.
Hopefully. That's the date.
Aw.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about a topic that was suggested to us by email, which we really appreciate. They're super helpful and encouraging. And this particular topic is concerning the progression of relationships from dating to engagement to marriage, and how emotionally, what is a healthy way to make that transition throughout all the stages of a relationship. Because I think we all can agree, emotionally you're a different place when you're married than when you're dating.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this weird middle time of engagement, which we kind of talked about in a different podcast, but I
Did
think
we?
it got cut
Ooh.
a long time ago when we were like,
Sorry.
what's the
Drama
point?
Just
Pam,
kidding,
it
just kidding.
probably got
Just
No,
cut.
it was like a
we
long,
need it
it was like a long side
Spiel.
note that
Okay.
was not even relevant to the topic. But it's a thing that
Yeah.
we've always kind of wondered, what do you do with this weird time of your life?
Mm.
And I'm really excited to talk about it because half of my relationship was engagement anyway, because we had 2-year-long engagement. So that was rough. So it's nice to hear other people's experiences and perspective on that. So emotional boundaries is pretty broad and can mean a bunch of things to a lot of different people. So to make it a little bit simpler, we're going to break it up into 3 different areas of emotional boundaries. So one will be spiritual intimacy, one will be time management intimacy, and the other one will be communication and intimacy. And we'll just compare those 3 things in the 3 different stages of the relationship. So why don't we start with the time management aspect
Okay.
of intimacy in dating? Let's start there. How do you keep that healthy?
Well, immediately when I think of that, I think of the couples that are together all the time
Mhm.
when they're dating,
Yeah.
or even before they say they're dating.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I look on the outside and I think, wow, that's so unhealthy. But then when I started dating, it's like, well, I want to hang out with Chris all the time.
Mhm.
So I definitely see the temptation to do that. But from an outside perspective, I'm like, that doesn't look healthy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know?
And I think it also depends on what are you doing with your time with the person.
Mm.
Because if all you're doing is literally just hanging out and there's no real godly
Intentionality.
yeah, even serving together, let's go do this, let's go serve these people together, or let's go with this group of friends and talk about what we've been learning in the scripture, or let's do this little prayer get together. You could definitely use your time in a way that enhances your love for the Lord, instead of just of staring at each other's eyes and longing to be married. It's
Yeah.
you could still in your heart oh, I really want to marry this person, but you want to see how they interact. You want to see how they serve. You want to see how they handle trials. And if you're doing all that, just you two all the time, it gives you a false view of who they are. And I think, and I've said this before, maybe in the dating one, is once you tell each other you like each other, you already start putting up a facade. And it's not, like I said this before too, it's not because you're being deceitful. It's just that's how we are. We just do that normally. It's just part of who we are. And so you want to see each other in the natural environment as best you can. But I mean, if you already know you like each other, then that's a little bit difficult. That's another hurdle to jump over, but
Yeah.
it's not impossible. But I think that's why having that intentional quality time with the person you're dating, and then actually seeing them in those environments, how they serve, how they love, things like that.
Yeah, I like what Bethany I think you got it a lot, was their friendships kind of with other friendships as well. Do you spend all your time with this person to the extent that like you're losing other friends or you're sacrificing all other relationships to be with this person.
Right.
Because when I think back to like friendships that I've lost, a lot of it's because I was like, I think you're in an unhealthy relationship. Look at all the people that you no longer see.
Yeah.
You know? So I think if you had healthy friendships to begin with, and those healthy friendships, hopefully Christian friendships, are like suffering because of this relationship, I don't necessarily think they should. So I think that would be a big red flag that you're spending your time
Too much.
at that stage. You know what I mean? Like obviously when you get married, you see that person more than anyone else.
Right.
But I feel like if that's happening already when you're just dating, that would be a red flag that maybe your time management is off.
Another thing with that is the more you hang out with people, the better they can give their assessment of
That's
the
true.
person. So if it's just you two all the time hanging out, of course you're biased. You like the person,
Yeah.
so you're gonna see their best characteristics or whatever. But if you're around other people, other church family, other friends and family, then they could give you their assessment of the person.
Right.
You know, as they get to know the person, they could say like, oh, you know, these are the things that we see that are really good and healthy, and even yellow flags, even red flags. I mean, we had a situation at our old church where a girl was starting to like this gentleman, and I didn't know the person, so we had him over for lunch, and I remember him coming through the door. And it was just really odd, like the vibe I got. I'm not saying like be all about vibes or anything, but you could tell like when you meet another believer, you know, there's like a certain connection you have.
Right.
And this person came in and it was really weird already, but I was just telling myself like, give him a chance. And so we sat down, we had lunch, and it was just so weird and off-putting. I remember him just talking about the Bible, but he really wasn't making sense because he just wanted to show that he knew about the Bible. And I was so like, literally my mouth was open. I was like, who are you? And this sister who I loved the Lord and was just very bright and like servant hearted, and she wanted a healthy marriage in the future for her. So I'm like looking at her like, what are you doing with this person? You know? And it was very sad. Like I remember just being so sad. But I mean, if she had never brought him, like I wouldn't have been able to give her my assessment, and my husband wouldn't have been able to give her his assessment. So you need the church family, you need your family, your bio family around, other friends, other Christian friends, and just looking at the scriptures, like what does the scriptures say that I should be looking for in a husband, you know, in a godly man, and vice versa, what should I be looking for in a godly wife, you know?
So basically we're saying when you're dating, be intentional with the time you're spending with that person. Limit the time that you spend with the person.
I guess what I'm trying to say with that is if that relationship just as a dating relationship takes up your whole life, that can't be healthy yet or ever. And especially if there's like, I think this is what I was getting, like emotional manipulation to it, where I've seen relationships where like if they had a friend outside of this relationship or they went to do something without this other person, like there was guilt, there was you're being disloyal, where it's like, no, they just have a life, you know? And like as far as you're dating, like you're not, what's the word? Not entitled. Well, they're not like entitled to your whole life yet. They can't be a husband to you yet. They shouldn't be like, I'm your leader yet. You know? So if you're already looking to this person to be like your leader and you're asking for permission and all these things, like that's skipping a lot of steps. So when I've just seen that dynamic where I'd say like, I would caution, probably because I've seen it go wrong so many times, I'm just maybe sensitive to it, that like, don't put him in a husband's role yet. Like you're still single and you still can do your own thing too, while still being intentional with the time you spend with him. But that's why I was thinking that also might go into like the emotional boundary of like communication as well, like what you expect from them for like how much you need to give them verbally, like permission. So then comparing that to the stage of engagement and having time management with this person, how does that look different?
Well, I think you're going to need to spend more time with the person in the sense you're going to be getting counseling, you're going to be planning a wedding, you're going to be trying to find a play, you know. And I think that's good, you know. It is a progression. You are moving towards marriage. But obviously as you're moving towards marriage, other temptations are going to rise up. So you still have to be on guard, and you still have to make sure that, like you said, Kelly, with the dating, that it's not consuming you to the point you're losing other relationships. But I think it is okay to spend more time with the person as you become engaged, because you have a lot to talk through and a lot to work towards.
And for them to get to know your family as well. On a deeper level.
Yeah, engagement's a weird time for me. I'm not sure I completely understand it. Just because I, like we dated from 17 to 18 and a half, I got engaged then, and then we were engaged for a really long time, and then we got married. So it was like
Really long time being.
it was like a 18-month engagement.
Okay.
So half of our time dating, we were engaged.
Okay.
So I feel like emotionally I was more invested in him once we were engaged. But we also had to maintain some type of an individual life outside each other. He was working, I was still at school.
Right.
So we still had like, it was still a distance relationship. So I think that kind of helped prioritize the time we had together, what we were going to do with it, because
Right.
most of our time we were apart.
Because I'm thinking as far as like being engaged, you're older. You tend to be more older.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily, but yeah. Even in your case, like you had a job, he had a job, or you're gonna get a job. You're gonna go to interviews. So your time isn't as open, perhaps. Like if you're in school and you're dating, then you have more time to like see each other, hang out, study. Whereas like now maybe you have jobs, so you don't have that much time. So I've seen that progression in people that are dating and then us counseling them and then to engagement. Like you see their time now being chopped up to, well, now I have family, now I have these like friends, and now I have this engagement or this wedding that I'm prepping. Like right now we're doing premarital counseling with a couple, and they literally see each other once a week. And because he's in grad school, she's a teacher, so they just don't have the time to just be like hanging out all the time, so sometimes it just depends on what's going on in your life, you know, like you just can't have that availability open. But at the same time, I know like with them, like they're still trying to pray together, still trying to have like really fruitful conversations. So if anything, your time management starts zeroing in on like things that really matter, like how can I pray for you? I have this short time. What's the best thing I could do with this amount of time, with this person?
No, because I see what you're saying. Because when we were engaged, Paul was in LA and I was working, and we would meet in San Diego for the weekend to do premarital counseling. And that would be our time together like every other week.
Yeah.
So it was limited, but it was also a very, I think, healthy time because one, had we been together more often, I probably would be an emotionally unhealthy person. I feel like I would be obsessive.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was kind of God's gift of keeping us healthy in a sense, but also it did focus us in on productive, edifying things.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have that much time.
And it's weird too. I mean, I haven't done like a test, or like statistical test or anything, but it seems like a lot of couples that see each other less, like they're more focused, and it's more like, this is what needs to happen. And it tends to be a little bit more healthy. But I mean, I could be wrong, because I also know of people that did see each other more and it was still healthy, but that's why I even like root for like long distance relationships, because I just think it's so good to be apart from each other and still live your life, still serve the Lord. And then when you're together, again, it's like super focused. It's like, okay, now we have this time, this amount of time, or these days to like go visit your family, me get to know your friends, you get to know my friends, so it seems very focused as opposed to, what are you doing today? Nothing. What are you doing today? Okay, want to hang out? Like, I don't know, but maybe I'm just biased. I just think that long distance relationships are cool. But
So if you meet someone you like, move.
yes, move right away. Move away.
And then obviously when they go to marriage, you get a ton of time together.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't manage your time. Enjoy it.
Because even when you're married, it shouldn't just be you and your spouse.
You shouldn't be an
all
island.
the time. Yeah. It's like, no, you're meant to be in community. Your relationship's supposed to display Christ in the church. So that's something as a married couple you should look to, like serving together and serving apart in a way that your spouse is free to serve because, go serve. I'll take care of the kids, or I'll take care of dinner while you go serve, So having that healthy balance of together time, but together, like always serving with a purpose. Like, who is this serving?
Well, and I think it could go the other way. When you get married, then you don't spend. Like the temptation is almost opposite, where you like have to, I'm sure like even more when you have kids, you have to be so much more intentional to set up the time to spend time with them. So that's the other side of, I think, time management in marriage is making time for the person. So still having those intentional conversations and still going on dates and all of that.
Yeah, and with the email that we got, I resonate so much with her. I thought that there would be absolutely no difference in terms of what time management. Like, we spent literally all day together when we were dating. The only time we weren't together is when we'd go home to sleep, and then we would see each other in the morning again. So it's different in marriage. Even though we spent like all day together dating. Marriage is like a sweeter time when you are with each other. Like the moments where you get to talk and to think about how can you grow as a married couple. Yeah, there is hope. Like
Yeah.
even if you're emotionally involved now,
Right.
as a dating couple or a fiance, being a wife is completely different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even like what they say, pillow talk. Like that's like the best
Mhm.
conversations you could
Mhm.
have with your husband is just when you're lying in bed and like.
Ah, Chris falls asleep so fast. That was like my dream before we got married. Like, I can't wait, like, we'll sleepover, you know, like talking at night.
Yeah.
Nope. Right when you go to bed.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm out. And I'm like, no, stop. Come back.
Don't go towards the light. Aw.
Okay, so then for emotional boundary in communication, what does that look like in all three? How does it change?
Well, I think with communication with dating, you have to be careful with what you say in dating. I mean, I'm thinking specifically like with lust issues and struggles that you or your dating partner have. You wouldn't want to bring them into that conversation yet, but I think it's still a conversation that needs to happen, but with others around, especially in like premarital counseling and other things like that. But as far as going deep into like what are your struggles and like how can I help and all that stuff, it's like, okay, well, that should just be held off and there should be other people involved, whereas in marriage, that's like a constant conversation you should be having and you should have it alone.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you and your spouse already know like the accountability partners and you're okay with them sharing, then it's like, okay, well, she has her accountability partners that she can come to and process, and they could help her process. But I mean, that's just a conversation that comes up in our marriages.
I'm thinking with dating communication, it's important to be clear. So you don't have to share everything, but in terms of the state of the relationship, it's good to be communicating about that. Because I remember when Chris and I were dating, I was feeling like so unsure, and I just didn't tell him anything. And it like, he didn't know where we were at, and he was like, what's going on? Like, this isn't going to work. And I think I just counsel people now, like, be honest with the person where you're at. So I think that's a unique part of the dating and I guess engagement, like just being clear about what you're thinking about the relationship. And then even dating up or breaking up communication, like being clear about that. And that way, if you do feel like the Lord's leading you to break up with them, it's not like you're not blindsiding them. You've been talking through it, So I would say just having clear, like that doesn't have to be deep, like, like you were saying, Francis, like you don't have to tell them all your secrets when you're dating.
Right.
But when it comes to the dating relationship, having good, clear communication about the dating relationship.
But even today, we were talking about like how much should we be discussing with our husbands. So still being wise about what we share with them in terms of like just throwing up our emotions on them versus being careful. Kelly and Dr. Francis are really good at having a lot more self-control with what to share emotionally and what's helpful, whereas me and Bethany are like, well,
if I'm not feeling good, Chris is gonna know about it.
So trying to find the line
even in marriage.
I guess when I just think of unhealthy relationships that I've seen or like areas I wish I had done better in mine, it would be like the expectation of what Paul should be communicating to me, which was everything, which maybe for sure wasn't entitled to yet. So, and I've seen other relationships do that too, where it's like a spousal possessive, like, oh, you talk to them? What do you talk about? What do you say? What they say? How do you feel about that? And like,
wow, that's me even now with PJ.
But you're a spouse. And like that's a spouse's job is to like talk through things.
Right.
And I've seen other friends be in relationships where it's like if they didn't tell the other person like who they had lunch with that day, it was like betrayal.
Right.
And it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
So I guess just weighing like obviously as all good relationships, even with friendships, grow, like you share more and more. Like the closer
there
you
should
get to
be
people,
boundaries.
Yeah. And I guess I would just say weigh your expectations with the reality of where your relationship is. Because then I think as you get engaged, like Bethany was saying, like be clear, like I would hope you would share this and this with me. And then they can say, I don't think that's helpful for you to know. And you can have that dialogue.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's more of an engaged conversation.
Right.
as opposed to a dating one. I feel like when dating gets entitled and possessive, that's when you've kind of emotionally become married.
Yeah.
There's a possessiveness to
Yeah.
that, for sure, because that's your role.
Right.
And I think in ways I tried to take on that role too soon.
Yeah. And I think being open with, if you're at a church and you have accountability partners, and hopefully you have some women that are married within the church or even part of your accountability group, but asking them questions of like, is this too much?
Right.
Am I being too emotionally attached to this boyfriend or this fiance? Again, having people chime in, because I think that's really important that we need. I mean, I'm so thankful for our church family when we do that, because I could see all of us like really trying to ask questions, be intentional, like asking them how they're doing in their purity, asking them, about their trial. So it's not like we're being nosy. It's just like we love this brother and sister and we want them to do well. And we want them to get married. Like they want that. We want that, but whatever the Lord wills. So like I could see the church family really like rooting for them in a way that's like really helpful and like godly. So I appreciate that.
And that doesn't change too much in marriage.
No.
It's just the topics change a little bit. But still,
You're
we
still
root
rooting
each
for
other.
that marriage. Yeah, that's right.
And then I think our last one was spiritual boundaries. And only because I've read a lot of really conflicting articles on this one, which I thought was interesting.
All right.
So what would you say is healthy spiritual, I don't want to say dependency, but almost dependency? Like how much do you share spiritually and like expect from them spiritually, dating, engagement, marriage?
Yeah, like can you do a Bible study with your boyfriend?
Yes. Do you pray with him all the time? Yeah.
We did Bible studies when we were dating.
Just the two of you?
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
So I've never thought through it.
Oh, okay.
We never went really deep though, in the sense it wasn't like this is my struggle and this is what Lord's convicting me from this passage. It was very much like, oh, this is what God's, we already studied for school together. So I think it was helpful to just have a Bible study together too.
Yeah.
I could see how it could be manipulated in a way that you could get too close to the person if you start sharing your like sin issue, But if it's not to say like have surface level Bible studies, but you can study the word with someone and it not be too deep too soon, I think.
Yeah. For PJ and I, we didn't do Bible studies. I mean, if he ever did, it was like because he was the youth pastor and I'm like part of the group. But I mean, as far as us one-on-one, it was very much like just natural conversations about the Lord.
Yeah.
And I've seen the fruit of that because that's how it is at home now. And I really I was just thinking, I think it was yesterday, like I'm so thankful that I could have these conversations with my husband. And it's primarily because the foundation that was set when we started dating, like it was there's this book towards parenting with your children. I think it's called like Everyday Talk or something like that. But it's like encouraging parents to talk about God with their kids like all the time, like just a normal conversation.
That's good.
And I feel like that's how PJ and I have been, and I appreciate that. And so we just didn't do the Bible study stuff, but we just were very intentional with our conversations. And even if it's not a Bible study, you could still ask like, what has the Lord been teaching you today? What are your prayer requests? One thing that we did do is we would pray. So we did pray a lot together before like we would leave, or if we would go somewhere together, like we would pray for purity, and like even in our for that day, like Lord, keep us pure today, things like that, where it's always on our mind. That was helpful. That was our dating. When we were engaged, I mean, I was definitely more observant and just seeing like, okay, how is he going to lead our future family? So I was very much aware. Whereas I think when we were dating, it was so like exciting and like I wasn't like, I felt like I was in La La Land.
Yeah.
And then once we got engaged, it was like, oh darn, like this is real. Like this is real, So I know, darn. Darn. I felt like it was really real. And so I was paying extra attention to how he was leading. And when he would fail, it would be very much in my face, so.
It's like, this is what I'm signing up for.
Yeah. Right.
My life.
Yeah. And then once you're married, then the spiritual aspect gets kicked up crazy amount, like notches.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Because now he's your leader.
He's your leader. Now
spiritual leader.
Yeah. And he has to give an account for how he leads his home. So I would say there is a huge responsibility on your husband to lead
Mm.
and how he leads you spiritually. So him actually washing you with God's word, like how is he doing that? And then if he's not doing it, then you as a wife having to bring it up and say like, this is where I think we lack. This is how I think you can help me spiritually. So now it's a mandate. Now it's a huge responsibility on your spouse to do that. Whereas when you're dating, it's not his responsibility
Right.
yet.
Right.
There is no divine
shouldn't
call.
be.
No, there is no divine call yet until you get married.
So yeah, hope that was helpful.
Probably not.
I'm sorry.
Hope it was helpful in that you will have other conversations with other people that will be helpful about this.
And
I
learn
think
lots of things.
right. The takeaway is go to other people, specifically
Your
other
church
believers,
family.
church,
Yes.
to help you, because that's tricky and complicated, and that's what your brothers and sisters are for. And it all started with an email. So hey, if you have anything to say, email us at kinship.podcast. No.
You got it. You got it. Just think about it.
Oh, sorry.
There's no dot? Okay, kinshippodcast at gmail.com.
There's the dot.
Yeah.
Found it.
First try.
After the edit. It's true.
Thank you to our church family, our husbands, to Lotta Family Incorporated,
Yes.
Pam for editing, and Aaron for sound, and Ezra for support. And thank you to, who am I forgetting? LA?
No, that's it. You're good.
No.
Thank you, California. And we're out.
County of Los Angeles have been great.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.